good afternoon. Yes, back, and back again. Another epic episode of the UKJ's Universal Music Series. We're here on a very beautiful Monday. Not quite as beautiful as it should be, but it's beautiful nevertheless from you open your eyes. So we're going to give thanks for each and every day. And it's with regret that I have to sort of mention the death of a very prominent person in the reggae music industry, Peter Morgan from the group Morgan Heritage. A brilliant group, a great group, independent thinking minded people, a group that definitely stood tall in the reggae music dancehall industry. So I'm going to salute those guys. Saw them a couple of years ago at a festival, and they were very, very professional. A wide catalogue of music that goes back well over nearly 2 decades, I would say. I wouldn't say 3 decades, but I'd say it goes back quite far. So I'm going to continue and try to give my best possible showing out there to you out there in the audience. I hope it's informative. I hope it's not too long and lengthy, because I try to talk about things that are quite technical from the norm of what people usually talk about. And I talked about music philosophy, which is a European minded way of thinking taken from the ancient Greeks, and it goes back well over 2,000 years to Plato, to Aristotle, and these were the people who basically formed their opinions on most of the things we see out in the world today. They studied hard, so a lot of the ologies that we study, they are based upon the Greek findings, the Greek teachings that they passed on through generations down the line. And I'm going to show you some of the history of music through the series. I'm going to show it through my own eyes, my own vision, my own perspective. And there are a lot of perspectives out there on music, so it is subjective to how you want to relay your side of the music that you listen to and you love. As being part of the industry, which I spoke about how the industry employs many different people. I've been employed through the industry many times and for many decades. I've been able to continue finding work, finding different avenues, different income streams, different ways of funding myself, sometimes even working for nothing just to keep the music that I believe should be out there out in the public eye. And these are my philosophies to music. It's not always about the money. It's about a lot of different things. There's so much that's involved in music. We have the scientific side, we have the mathematical side, and we have the spiritual side, and we have the social side. So music has so many different perspectives if you look at it from those four ways that people can enjoy music. And I'm going to look at some of the definitions of the words that we use from day to day this way, but I'm going to show you what the literal meaning of the word music means. It's a Latin word, itself derives from the ancient Greeks, music. I can spell that out for you so you can see how that's spelled, and it's taken from a few other different terms. I can't really pronounce them because they're in text, so they're not sort of pronounce them in the way that they should be. So music, literal meaning, is the art of the muses. So that is the literal meaning of the word music, the art of the muses. And the muses were 9 deities in ancient Greek mythology who presided over the arts and sciences. So the muses were the Greeks prayed to, they were gods, and they were the gods of arts and science. And that is what Greek mythology told us. So music is the art of sound. So when I spoke about music being an art, and then I broke down what sound was, sound is a complete different thing from music. So we have music, we have sound. So music is the art of sound in time that expresses ideas and emotions in significant forms through the elements of rhythm, melody, harmony, and color. The tones of sounds employed occurring in single line, melody, or multiple lines, harmony, and sounded or to be sounded by one or more voices or instruments or both. So music can be one line sung by one person, or it could be 10 lines sung by 10 different people, or one person can do that 10 lines if you record it, and that is harmony. So that is how sound and music are combined together and intertwined to make a pleasing sound. That is what the philosophy that the Greeks passed down, and then we now have translated into English, and these are the philosophies that the Europeans carried, and that this is how they define music. So harmony and sound. Song meaning in the dictionary, it could be short poems or other set of words set to music or meant to be sung. So it can also be musical phrases uttered by some birds, whales, insects, typically forming a recognizable repeated sequence used chiefly for emotional defense or for attracting mates. So that is what singing is. That is what song is. So you have birds in nature that sing. We have whales that sing. We have the whale song. And insects also sing. So when I mentioned that in nature we do not have silence, this is what I was alluding to, that even though we don't hear the sounds are still out there. We have birds chirping, whale sound, but also insects and birds make sounds which are out in nature. And if you live in more cities or near countryside, you may have trees, and trees will be the place where birds and insects and other things live in the natural habitat that they exist in. So phrases for song. When we say it was going for a song, that's a term we use for song. And it can be really saying that something's going cheap. Like if you was to say that the place was going for a song, that is a way of using the word song. So we use the word all the time. And we also use it in terms like when people are making a fuss or a commotion. We say they're making a song or dance. And you could put that in a sentence like said, she was sure to be making a song and dance about her aching feet. And that's just an example of the word song. And it's come from where the word came from. We found it basically being used by the Germans as sangu and sanguas, and the Dutch have a term called zang, spelled using Z, and it then came into the Indo-Euro definition, which was sang, and then that is where possibly the Europeans, the British, the French, and other nations then took it as sang or song or song. We also looked at the word harmony is the combination of simultaneously playing sounded musical notes to produce a pleasing effect. The piece of work owed its air of tranquility largely to the harmonies. So that's a quality of forming a pleasing and consistent whole. So it's a whole body of work that is pleasing and consistent. That is the philosophy behind harmony. So these are the components you would definitely have to have. And if you used it in other contexts outside of music, you would say delightful cities where old and new blend in harmony. That is a way of using the word harmony. And an arrangement of the four gospels or parallels narratives which present a single continuous narrative text. So harmony can be a text of words. It's harmonious. People can be harmonious in their behavior. They can be harmonious in their moods. And it comes from the word, from Greek word harmos, and the Latin term harmonia, and Old French, and then it went into Middle English where it became harmony. And we find that with most words, that was history. This is how history has told us how we then enjoy and appreciate music, and how we can then become educated. And this is the theory of music. And I also tried to look at other different angles of how music is used in day to day, and also has been used by academia, by learned people. As I said, the Greeks had a great massive link in how music was bought and put in front of us. And it goes back way over, as I said, 2,000 years. And Pythagoras linked to music. Pythagoras observed several ratios of sound wave frequencies and corresponding intervals between them, including the 4.3 known to musicians as the interval of perfect fourth, or two pitches that are 5 semitones apart from each other, and 3.2 perfect fifth, 7 semitones apart. And I'm not even going to attempt to try and explain that. It's so deep that you'd have to be a musician to understand what I'm talking about. But there is a space in between each note, and Pythagoras was one of the people who observed this. And in observing this, he documented his findings, and these findings then became part of our musical journey and my musical journey, because these were things that I then had to learn in school. When we mentioned Galileo, we find that Galileo was involved in music primarily because of his father, Vincenzo Galileo, a lutist who conducted experiments with music. Galileo was also a lutist. Although Galileo is known for his other experiments, he also conducted experiments with music. Stillman Drake believes that Galileo actually did conduct experiments which measured the weights tied onto similar strings of the same length and measured the musical intervals between the two strings. So Galileo was sort of responsible, or part responsible, for observing pitch. Look at Plato and also Aristotle, who affirmed that music contained intrinsic elements conducive to promotion of moral and spiritual harmony and in order in the soul. So this is quite deep. This is where I talk about dogma and also the opposition of dogma, which is being pragmatic. So dogmatic and pragmatic are two opposing sides. And I would say definitely Plato was more pragmatic. I use the word genetic initially to sort of describe what I thought Plato and Galileo and Pythagoras were alluding to, and the word is really pragmatic. So we look at the opposite of dogma, and that is being pragmatic. And also, if we look at what Socrates, who's another great music follower, who's another music must follow and accompany the speech, not the other way around. Good speech, good harmony, good grace, and good rhythm accompany good disposition, says Socrates. Music and gymnastics and their balance is important. So that's quite deep, and I leave you to sort of decipher that. I'm not going to give you my definition on what I believe he was speaking about. I'd have to think about it. That is what great philosophers do. They take in the information before they open their gobs. So a lot of this stuff, I've had to digest it before I kind of bring it out in front of you. So I'm not going to go too far in what I've been looking at, but we looked at sound, we looked at how sound moves, and we looked at how sound is generated. And in nature, it is generated through animals, through the natural habitat. In the habitat that we create with instruments, it was also a natural thing. They used instruments from nature. They used wood, they would use animal skins in the early times. This was what they often used to make the sounds. And the speed and sounds whole. Sound is vibration that travel through air or another medium and can be heard when they reach a person or animal's ear. So that is the definition of sound, or what it is. It's a vibration and it reaches your ear. This is what I said on the last episode. Sound produced by continuous regular vibration as opposed to noise. So there's two significant things that it mentioned there. So that it's a continuous regular vibration, and it's it's opposite to noise. So sound and noise, they're saying they're complete two different sides of the spectrum. And the word sound came from the Latin word sonos, and then it went to become SOUN, which was Anglo-French. Then it went to Middle England, which is stayed the same. And then when it became English, we added the D onto it. Speed of sound is 343 meters a second. That is in dry air at 20 degrees Celsius. So this actual speed of it in miles per hour is 761 miles per hour, or 1100 feet per second. So that kind of gives you a little bit, a tiny little scientific look at sound. And we also looked at philosophy of music, and I'm kind of not going to add my philosophy too much to that because that is theory. I'm just giving you the music theory. You can then decipher, look through, and see if any of the information I've given you is bullshit, and you find that it's not. I'm just giving you the information as facts. My philosophy is what I think, and I will come back with my philosophy in the next episode. Thank you, G's.